life is life.
G'day and welcome. As we embrace the joys of life, we also face challenges. And today on the program we have Daryl Hayward with us. And he'll share some of the joys of life and also how faith has helped him through the challenges. And also we'll tune up together and do a few songs. So we'll hope you'll enjoy the program.
He will give you life eternal. He will, He will, He will open up the doorway you never knew was there. He will show you many things you knew not how. He will let you know He listens to your every prayer. He will save you by the mercy of His love. He will guide you through life's battles. He will give you calm. He will answer when you call Him night or day. He will shine His light upon you in the darkest hour. He will love you and go with you all the way. He will take you by the hand and lead you as you were a child down the straight and narrow aisles through Satan's mill. He will take you when the time is right, and in just a little while He will love you and go with you all the way. He will give you life eternal. He will, He will.
The old sniggin tracks. And the old springboard joggle reminds me of the old fellas cutting the timbers down. Grandad used to share a lot of stories about the springboard and getting above the flanges and the spurs to cut them down.
Absolutely, it's amazing to see that.
So you had a bit of experience in the timber industry over in New Zealand, Daryl.
Yes, well, I did. In my younger days, I snigged many logs out of the bush on tracks just like you see here in this beautiful part of Australia, and all the experiences that go with it. And for many years we laboured in that industry. It was very meaningful, great history of mine that I cherish.
You worked with Dad?
I did, yes, worked with Dad. And
was that Hayward and Sons?
That's right, C.A. Hayward and Sons. We had a wonderful relationship, and it was a family business. And in my early days, this is my life, I remember.
What, about 20-year-old?
Yes, from the ages of 17 to 20. Along with other things I was working on in my life, this was really our main living. So, and you know, I was the bulldozer operator mostly, even though I did a lot of the cross-cutting. Dad did most of that, but I snigged the logs and made the logging roads, and to me that's a very real thing in my life, and it's rare today, but that's how the country was built.
So on one of the good days it turned bad?
Well, yes, and that's what I would like to talk to you about today, Stan. You're a friend of mine, and we needed to tell that story in brief, because it was an unbelievable experience. You know, on one occasion I was asked to go to the local city and pick up some parts for the bulldozers and loaders, and I took off on a motorbike, and then a huge thunderstorm came up and I found myself lost, and the bike slipped on oil on the road, and I ended up in hospital in the central part of New Zealand at the Waikato hospital, and they said, well, I'm sorry, but you're never going to walk again. And I said, well, that's pretty bad. So we were sitting that out in hospital on a bed, and one day on the 8th day of February that year they came to me, and they didn't know I was a Christian, but they held me down and they said to me, we've got some real bad news for you, Daryl. Your dad has just been killed in a logging accident. Well, I didn't react. At that very moment I sent up a prayer to the Lord in heaven. I said, help me through this one, God.
So they came in and held you down.
They
so
did.
They were expecting a bit of
They were expecting bad things from me.
because your father and you were so close.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I testified even to the nurses and said, well, you know, when you're a Christian, well, you've got a better hope from what's here on this place, this earth that we live on, where there's death and sorrow. So with that I girded up my loins and they put me back in the bed. The next morning they brought me a copy of the local newspaper, and yes, there was my dad's picture right on the front page. And I'll never forget thinking, well, I didn't think I'd be lying here today and reading about my dad on the front page of the newspaper. And they said to me, well, you're going to have to make all the decisions for yourself about your leg, but you're in a mess. And of course the whole family was in a mess.
So you're in hospital, you get the news of Dad having that accident and dying.
That's it.
So that tragedy was a load slip there, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. There was a log that fell off the top of the truck, a loaded log truck, and he never saw it coming. It struck him and rolled right over him and broke every bone in his body. He never suffered. He passed away within 15 minutes. But unfortunately, that's what can happen in the world today, even to Christians. You know, we're not a protected species because we believe in God. You know, the old book says we live in this world and tragedies are going to happen, but God helps us through it in some way. And I believe I'm better off as a Christian because God did help me through that experience at that time.
There's a big old barrel on this fella.
Oh, that's fantastic, isn't it?
So you were saying that you're in hospital.
That's true.
And you get the news that Dad's been killed in the bush, and they show you his picture on the newspaper to show you it's true.
That's right.
Couldn't imagine it.
It's a very unimaginable situation. Doctors came to me to talk to me about my leg, and I needed my dad at that point, and he wasn't there. So I turned to prayer and asked God for wisdom. Growing up in a Christian home, I felt that the Lord was there for me at that point in my life, and sure enough he was. I look back on that and I made the exact right decision. Chose to run with the younger surgeon. He was 26 years of age at the time. He had a conflict with the older surgeon. He said, I want to take your kneecap out and stitch the tendon on the bone, or you'll be frizzled up with arthritis by the time you're 35 years of age. So I let him go ahead with that operation, and within 3 months I was on the road to recovery.
Right.
Amazing.
So it's a fair bit for a 20-year-old that's always sort of work, you know, with the family. You got these decisions. The old fella's gone. You're coping with this, and you say you turned to prayer. Now, I had an experience on a property we were on where a prospector comes through. He had the rights of prospect, and Alison and I invited him in for lunch.
Yes.
And at that time we'd had a few miracles of our own, and I shared some of those miracles. And he said, yeah, you would have turned to God when you were in need. And I said, that's right. And he said, most people do. They said, because they're weak, they need a crutch. and at that I left it. And I just wondering, in a situation like yours, as you've explained as a 20-year-old, anything but something real wouldn't have worked. Like some sort of a fiction crutch just couldn't have worked in that situation.
Absolutely.
You're saying you found wisdom to choose the right direction to fix your busted up kneecap. You found peace to handle the fact that you weren't there for Dad when he was crushed and he had that strife. And all this, you managed to keep it together and find peace through prayer.
Absolutely, because you get to a point in this life where there's no human comfort for things that's happening to you. And we have to face that fact in this life that not even Christians are protected from the scars of sin in this world. And sometimes God says no, and that's a hard one. But when you ask God for, with an earnest and a contrite heart for help in your life with a problem, and you are believing on his name, I believe that he helps you 100%. I can testify to that, because I immediately made a decision under the worst circumstances in the world, and I believe it was the right one. Looking back in my life, there was 100% right decision I made at that point in my life. And you know, the amazing thing is that I have run and jumped on that leg ever since, and I've got 100% of knee flexion, and it's not much weaker than the other leg, so God helped me with that one. And then God helped me through the horrible process of laying my loving Father to rest. And he comforted us with the everlasting hope of the gospel. Of course, that hope is that on the resurrection morning we're going to meet again, and let me tell you, it's true.
So the way I sum God up, the great creator, is he's like the breeze. You can feel this breeze. You know that it's real, it's there, but yet it's unseen. And that's how you know that day in the hospital that God is real. It was an unseen hand that reached down and helped you cope in those situations.
Absolutely. There's a conviction comes over your mind that you need to do and act this way. And he takes control of your mind and your thoughts, and the conflict in your head just dissipates. You know what pathway you're meant to be walking on. And so I feel that is the realness of the Creator to me, and I know that I made the right decisions, and through life we've also had many experiences the same, whereby we trust him to make the right decisions when we come to a crossroads in our life. And I guess that there's many Christians that can testify to that today if you ask them. And I don't believe it's a crutch or a cop-out, or it's something to cast your soul to that's worthless. I believe that when you cast your soul to the Lord Jesus Christ, he's ready and waiting to hear your prayer, and he will direct your thoughts and actions.
Thanks, Daryl. Good on you.
Precious memories, unseen angels sent from somewhere to my soul. And the sacred past unfold. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. mother, loving mother, fly across the lonely years, and old home scenes of my childhood in fond memory appears. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. As I travel on life's pathway, I know not what the years may hold, but as I ponder, hope grows fonder. Precious memories flood my soul. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. Precious sacred scenes unfold.
So we're in the barley paddocks now, Daryl.
Yes, look at that beautiful crop.
It's just beautiful.
It's amazing. All the food that mankind needs to live, and animals.
So after New Zealand, you've come across to this old country, Australia, and 4 decades at least you've been in these type of paddocks, haven't you, mate?
Yes, that's exactly right. I convalesced in Australia, doing things I liked, and finally ended up working on the land, growing and harvesting crops just like this. And I've enjoyed that life, and I love that life, and it really has been a great time for me.
So some of your main areas from central New South Wales through to central Queensland?
Yes, we've harvested up and down that wheat belt a number of times, and odd times you've been with us too, Stan, so you know all about that life.
Yeah, well, it's very enjoyable, and it definitely has its hardships.
It does.
Yeah, so I'd like you to share with us, Daryl, an experience you had a few years back in a paddock similar to this one.
Yes, I was harvesting in a paddock very similar to this in central Queensland, and it got very late one night and I only had one run left to do up the paddock, and I went to do that last run up the paddock and found out that there was some tall grass there that blocked up my header front, and I had to get off the machine to clean it out. So I flicked the switches to disconnect the power from all of the equipment, and little did I know that one finger slipped off one switch and the rear of the header kept going. The front was still very still and stopped, and as I cleared the choke
I could hear something squealing in the back of the machine. I walked around there and grabbed a pulley about that size and gave it a shake, but I didn't realise until I'd grabbed it that pulley was actually turning.
Right. So in the dead of night and fatigue sets in, I know what it's like at times when you're just trying to get that last bit done. You're tired. Okay, you made a slip up. She dragged you in.
Well, it did. The end result was my hand went up over that great big belt with 300 horsepower going through it. It pulled my whole body off the ground and bashed my head on the machine as it went up and broke all the bones in my face and my head.
Right.
And I lay there unconscious in the paddock. And somehow when you're unconscious, and I don't understand this part of the story, but even myself, even though it happened to me, that when your phone is dead and you've only got limited service in various spots in the paddock, that you can ring out and tell your wife you need a band-aid because you're bleeding. So she immediately rang the farmer in bed, and he's 80 years of age, and he came down the paddock, believe it or not, with his dog on the back of the ute. And dog hopped off at the header, he told me, at a later date because I was unconscious. And machine was roaring and there was no Daryl. Nowhere you looked. The dog went straight across the paddock like that, sort of up on an angle about like that. He found me on the ground, nearly bled to death. He followed the blood trail, you see. The old man looked at me with a tender look in his face, knew I wouldn't make it to the local medical centre. So he decided, pick him up, put him in that ute, take him. So he got to the medical centre, and long story, but an ambulance was there and they took me to the Emerald Base Hospital.
So that night in the paddock, there was a few things that actually worked together in order to save your life there in the paddock. The dog, for instance, it was night, you somehow, when that header dragged you through and you got out of it, you wandered off and fell unconscious. That old dog followed the blood trail and found you. And your mobile phone, which was dead, you were able to call out, and the reception in those paddocks, I know she's pretty sketchy at the best of times.
Well, I have no recollection of making that call, and I never knew anything until I was probably about 30 miles as the crow flies out of Brisbane, and I heard the plane shaking as they were transporting me to air ambulance. The Emerald Hospital couldn't help me. They knew there wasn't enough power within the walls of that hospital to save my life.
So I remember you saying that on your way to Emerald Hospital that they resuscitated you twice. You fell dead.
Yep.
Emerald, they couldn't attend to such injuries.
No.
So how'd you go in Brizzy?
Well, in Brisbane, they took me into the most intense ward, what they call intensive care. They laid me down and decided to save my life they needed to do surgery on my head. So they worked out where the bones had punctured into my sinuses, and they took me straight to surgery, and they sewed and stitched up around those bones that are still there.
Okay, and that hand that grabbed that wheel, that dragged you in, it got pretty knocked around as well.
Well, they were keen to cut it off, and they rang my family and said, we're going to do it, and they said, no, you're not. So,
oh, we're glad, because we still get a tune out of you now.
That's one of the byproducts. I can still play the guitar.
Yeah.
But looking on the good side of it, I believe once again somebody upstairs was looking after me, because they made a decision not to do that, even though it was against common sense.
Yeah.
And
why is that? Because what was so bad about the hand they want to cut
well,
it off?
Yep, the grease had mixed in with the flesh on the surface of the hand. You can see on the surface of that hand the scars. Tendons were cut in 2 places, and I really shouldn't have that hand. Basically what happened is that they decided to stitch it up, stop the bleeding there, and stop the bleeding in my head. So when that was completed, the bleeding slowed down, but I still bled for about 6 weeks and spat the blood out from my mouth. It was an awesome time. Very sad time, hard time for me.
I know one of the difficulties you shared is when the body's gone through so much trauma. There was a period of time after surgery where you just felt like you couldn't go on, Daryl.
Yes, there was, and unfortunately that comes to a place in human experience where you believe that you're not going to be able to survive with the pain and the sorrow that you're enduring. And so at that point I was bewildered, and I just wanted to out. I wanted my life to end. I was on a heavy dose of antibiotics, being fed through an intravenous drip line, and it certainly wasn't helping me.
We just let this grain truck go by. We're already taking grain out of the paddocks around here.
Absolutely.
So the old antibiotics, you felt like they had you on some pretty strong stuff, and that was killing you, you felt?
Well, it was very, very strong stuff, and I didn't realise at the time it was the strongest stuff the hospital has in stock.
Yeah.
And I laid there unable to even have a spoonful of water or any fluids, and you know, people think you can live on drip. Well, I'd like to beg to differ with that. After you've been on it a few weeks, I tell you, you realise you just can't.
So tell us the miracle, Daryl. I mean, when a man gets to the point where his body's that bashed and you're that sick because of the medicines, and you feel like you cannot press on with life anymore, what is it that's sprung you to this point where you're still standing here?
Well, it's the will of God on my life, and when you place your life in his hand, a strange thing happens. If your labouring days on this earth are not full, as far as God's concerned, he stretches down his hand and he enables you to move on. And that's a very, very strange act that happens.
What happened in that hospital that brung you out of that despair to say there's more for you to do?
Well, because I wasn't meant to die, because I had purposed in my heart to die, and I said my goodbyes to my family, and I knew I couldn't survive that night. There was one particular night that I know that I should have died, and as I went to sleep, I asked the Lord to take me in mercy and joy, because my time was up on this earth. And I woke up the next morning, and I tell you, I said, well, Lord, it wasn't your will for me to die, or I wouldn't be awake. I'm in a lot of pain. Show me how to live. Please, God, show me how to live.
Right.
That's where the story gets really interesting.
So this is the hand reaching out to the hand.
Absolutely.
So when you done that reaching, what was the remedy?
Well, God immediately put a thought in my head that morning, and I rang my wife and said, bring me up a tablespoonful of carrot juice.
Carrot juice.
Can you believe that? Something so simple.
No, she's a mighty thing, the old carrot.
Why would God put something so simple in my head? I don't understand.
So the carrot juice came up. How'd that go with you?
Well, the carrot juice came up in a small synthesized bottle, and I took a spoonful of it and I immediately vomited it out, and I did that 3 or 4 times through that day and the next day. And you know, a miracle was happening, is that carrot juice was actually changing the taste buds of my mouth from rejection of food to acceptance of food. I don't understand that. I'm not a nutritionalist, but it did.
Right.
And the amazing thing was that after about 4 days after that, I was able to have fluids.
Right.
Amazing miracles.
So Daryl, this extended time you have, mate, you're back on your feet. You tell me, what's your goal now?
Well, I'm helping as many people at whatever stage of life they're at to a better life. And I believe that I'm being led to the right people at the right time. And I'm finding lots of young people, youth, and people that don't have proper parental guidance, and mums and dads, and I'm finding that the years of experience that I have been blessed with, I'm passing it on to them with goodwill and helping them to develop into great Australians.
So no doubt that is as rewarding as getting the old header into a good year's crop, eh?
Absolutely it is, because it's a harvest of souls.
Yeah.
This is a harvest of grain, and you know, it's all worth something to us, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, let's listen to Lord of Harvests, eh?
Good, thanks, Dan. Thank you.
Far and near the fields are teeming with the sheaves of ripened grain. Far and near their gold is gleaming o'er the sunny slopes and plains. Lord of harvest, send forth reapers, hear us, Lord. To thee we cry, send them now the sheaves to gather ere the harvest time pass by. Send them forth at day's first dawning, send them in the noontide glare, when the sun's last rays are streaming, bid them gather everywhere. Lord of harvest, send forth reapers, hear us, Lord. To thee we cry, send them now the sheaves to gather ere the harvest time pass by. The Lord is sending, gather now the sheaves of gold. Then at last at evening wending thou shalt come with joys untold. Lord of harvest, send forth reapers, hear us, Lord. To thee we cry, send them now the sheaves to gather ere the harvest time pass by. Ere the harvest time pass by.
You know, when I look back over my life of harvesting, my mind turns to another harvest that actually Jesus spoke about when he was here on earth. And that's the harvest of the world. And what Jesus said about it, he said that the harvest is great and the reapers are few. I'm going to read that to you. It's in Luke, the 10th chapter, and in verse 2. Therefore he said unto them, the harvest truly is great, but the labourers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth labourers unto his harvest. You know, there's coming a time that the Lord is going to harvest the earth, and time as we know it will be no more. And the Lord is looking for reapers, just like we use harvesters in the field to harvest the grain when it's ripe. And the Lord's harvest is great and wonderful. and there's going to be reapers. If you feel touched by the program today that we've put together to help you to understand a bit more about that harvest, make it the purpose in your heart that you will decide to serve the living God and do what you can to help with that great harvest that Jesus himself is going to be the master of. That's my greatest heart's desire today, and I believe I've been spared to help out with that work, and that's why I'm speaking to you today. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you.
If I surveyed all the good things that come to me from above, if I could count all the blessings from the storehouse of love, I'd simply ask for a favor of him beyond mortal king, and I'm sure that he'd grant it again. I want to stroll over heaven with you some glad day, when all our troubles and heartaches vanished away. Then we'll enjoy the beauty where all things are new. I want to stroll over heaven with you. So many places of beauty we long to see below. Time and treasure has kept us from making plans, as you know. Come the morning of the rapture, where all things are new, I want to stroll over heaven with you. I want to stroll over heaven with you some glad day, when all our troubles and heartaches are vanished away. Then we'll enjoy the beauty where all things are new. I want to stroll over heaven with you. I want to stroll over heaven with you.
Well, it was good to hear what a benefit carrot juice was for Daryl. Now Alison and I would like to share the benefits of a carrot poultice through some experiences we've had over the years.
Yes, we were out camping and a son of ours, who was around 6 years of age, had an infected spider bite on the top of his leg. Now, it had eaten away the flesh to about the size of a 50-cent piece. He was laying on the camp bed and his leg started shaking uncontrollably, and he called out to me, "Mum, Mum, my leg." Now Stan had gone into town with some others, and so I was left with the children, and I gathered them around and we knelt around his bed and we prayed for him. And when the prayer finished, he said, "The pain's gone, Mum." Now the pain had gone, but we had to deal with the infection. So the impression had come to my mind to use a carrot poultice. I believe that impression came from a friend of mine sharing with me that she had used carrot on an infection on her husband's arm. He had been in a motorbike accident and had a gash up his arm that had gotten infected, and she'd explained to me that the carrot had drawn that infection out. So what we did was every few hours we put a carrot poultice on the top of his leg and kept changing that until it appeared that the infection was completely gone.
Yeah, so we'd like to demonstrate how to make a carrot poultice. And to do this we're going to need young Joe. Come on, Joe. So this is Joe. Now we're going to demonstrate a poultice on the calf muscle because we've had an experience on the calf muscle. I had some stick in my leg from working in the scrub, and a stick had poked me in the calf muscle, and unknowingly it had broken off in there, just a small bit of pointy stick. And over a period of a few days it became infected to the point I was having trouble walking on it. So we remembered the power of a carrot poultice, and you've seen young Joe scraping it there.
So first we get a chucks, if you have one. If you don't even have a chucks, you could use a handkerchief or clean piece of cloth. So you scrape the carrot, gather up the pulp and the juice. You want it to be quite moist but not sloppy and runny, and you can fold it back in like this so that you have just a single layer of the chucks between the skin and the carrot.
Oh. So in my case the calf muscle was all red, but I had an obvious area where the stick was, so I put it on that obvious area. Remember, with an infection, if you're drawing it, you need somewhere for the infection to come out. So this is a poultice where you want to draw infection to a hole or a possible area for a hole and get the infection out. So I put that old carrot poultice on for probably half an hour.
Sorry, I nearly forgot. Plastic cling wrap or plastic bag can help to stop the moisture coming through the bandage or escaping unnecessarily. You want it to keep moist.
It's important to remember, try not to let any plastic, you can use a plastic bag for this, just cut a bit, as long as it's clean. It's important not to get any of the plastic on any of the area around the infection, for we have experienced that it sweats and then you get little pussy blisters coming up under the plastic. So we've learnt to make sure that only material touches the area.
Okay, as for holding it on there, you can use a bandage, or if you don't have a bandage, you can cut the top off a sock, or if the area that you're applying it to is a knee or an elbow, the heel of a sock with just the toe cut off fits quite well and can hold it on. So this one we use the top of the sock.
There we go. Now in the case of the spider bite, it was very open, so the infection just came out, and Alison would just lightly clean it, put a new poultice on, lightly clean the infection off again. But in my case, I had to squeeze that infection out, and sometimes when you're helping yourself out, you've got to grit your teeth a bit because it hurts to get it out. So in my case, I squeezed it out, then put another poultice on, waited another half an hour. You could nearly see the redness come back to that whole area, then squeezed it again, and then after working that infected area, the infection would sort of spread again. Put the poultice on, and you can see it, all that redness came towards the carrot. And in another half an hour, so I squeezed the infection out until there was only a little bit of blood and there was a hole left.
To get the best healing effect, it's always better to eat raw or fresher foods as much as you possibly can, drinking lots of water, possibly taking it out into the sunshine in between poultices, depending on the type of infection and what's needed.
We've found a wonderful natural antibiotic in oregano oil, and that's also a wonderful help to fight infection internally as you work it externally. So we hope this will be helpful to you. So that'll be the end of this session of Outback Gospel, and we hope to see you next time.
God be with you till we meet again. By his counsels guide, uphold you. With his sheep securely fold you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, till we meet. God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. Neath his wings protecting hide you. Daily manna still provide you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, till we meet. God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. When life's perils thick enthrill you, by his arms unfailing round you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet at Jesus' feet. Till we meet, till we meet. God be with you till we meet again. God be with you till we meet again. Keep love's banner floating o'er you. Smite death's threatening way before you. God be with you till we meet again. Till we meet, till we meet, till we meet. God